Bulldogs big man responds to Kane Corns with a bag. And did the Eagles' winless run before today contribute to their skipper's injury? All that and more to come from the round so far. But Kane, we start tonight at the Gabba. The Power's unbeaten run coming to an end, and it all down to this 6-1 second quarter from the Lions.
Yeah, they're almost the #1 seed now, the Brisbane Lions. They can score so quickly, which is frightening for opposition teams, particularly in the shortened games. And in this second quarter, they kicked 6-1, as you said. The inside 50s were 18-5. It was set up at the stoppages, and you'd have some real concerns if you were Ken Hinkley for the first time this year about your undersized defence. So it's the first time they've come up against a really tall defence, and without Dougal Howard there, who they let go, who was the only 200+ centimetre defender they had, they were just so outsized today, and Brisbane took 12 inside 50 marks to 4.
Pretty much over at half-time, as you said. Do you think this is a real concern? Oscar McInerney and Eric Hipwood both over 200. We saw the Power defence do it last week against Darling and Kennedy. They weren't really troubled, but they were tonight.
Yeah, they were, particularly when the ball's coming in from the Brisbane midfield. I mean, their ability to score from stoppages is as good as any in the competition. And just when we're looking at the undersized defence there, it's pretty alarming when you've got Oscar McInerney 204, Hipwood's 203, McStay's 195, and then you can see the Port Adelaide defenders there. No one above the height of 193, and that's Cleary, who was well beaten tonight. So it's a worry. They weren't able to get Westhoff back there to support them in defence, which he's done so well. He had a quiet and an off night, Justin Westhoff, as did a lot of Port Adelaide senior players. But they've been up for a long time, and no side really has gone through the resumption of this season and been up for a long stretch. They've been away from home. They'll be looking forward to actually getting home this week and then flying back into Queensland for the next couple of weeks before some home games at the back end. So just a few concerns for Port Adelaide, but Brisbane terrific tonight.
Charlie Dixon had 6 goals and 6 contested marks last week, just as 6 disposals tonight. Another great job from Harris Andrews. Now, you've had a couple of #1 picks in your sights in recent times. You've been strong on Cam Rayner's output. You liked this in the first quarter.
Have a look at his work rate. So we've circled him there, his starting position. It's in a marking contest. Second effort there, and then he just goes. Look at him, and no Port Adelaide player goes with him. So I think he's actually been lucky to have held his place in the side throughout last year and the early stages of this year. But that's got to please you when you see vision of that and you get on the end of a 150-metre sprint that no opposition player can go with you. If he continues to do that, he's going to turn into the player that Brisbane would have thought he would have been when they picked him #1.
And 29 touches and a goal for Lachie Neale, 500 metres gained, something we haven't associated with him in the past. You're probably a favourite for the Brownlow now.
Yeah, his record against Port Adelaide is amazing. So the last 5 games before this one, he averaged 32 disposals and 10 clearances. They didn't really put a lot of time into him. There was a sort of a team effort, but team efforts don't work. You've got to go after Lachie Neale with a dedicated tagger. Port Adelaide didn't do that, and as always, Lachie Neale will make you pay.
To Marvel Stadium next. You put the acid on Josh Bruce last week. No Aaron Norton in the side tonight. He's responded and stuck it up Kane with 6 goals.
He did just that. He needed to, because I reckon he was a poor game from being dropped, and now the injury to Norton has probably helped him. It's freed up some space. He's become the focal point in the forward line. I actually like the combination between him and Shaki tonight, but 3 contested marks, he took 6 marks, just 10 disposals, but how efficient. Like everything he touched turned to goal tonight. So it was a welcome response from what has been a really poor start to the year, and hopefully, well, he's not going to kick 6 every night, but hopefully he finds a way to contribute when things aren't going his way.
We had to give him our Saturday star after the comments from last week. North Melbourne pretty disappointing, and they conceded a stack of scoring opportunities from stoppages.
Yeah, it was 8 goals to 2 from stoppages, and that's considering that Todd Goldstein dominated the hitouts. They had double the amount of hitouts as what the Western Bulldogs did, and Tim English, whilst he didn't get the ruck dominance, I thought he competed really well, and the setup from the Western Bulldogs tonight allowed them to dominate from Goldstein's hit. And also, it was back to the Western Bulldogs. I mean, their uncontested ball plus 68 against their opposition in uncontested. That's what we know the Western Bulldogs can do. Run, handball, receive, uncontested, link up and get it in fast, you forwards, and they capitalised tonight.
And English has really held his own in the last 3 weeks, you said, and he's been a big part of why they've won 3 on the trot. Now, Hayden Crozier delivered this tackle on North Melbourne's Jack Marnie late in the game. It's going to be an interesting test case as to the stricter rules we learned of a few weeks ago around the Sean Burgoyne, and they centre on the potential to cause injury.
It really is an interesting one because the arms aren't pinned, but there's a slinging motion and the head hits the ground. You can see Marnie there coming off with the blood rule. So that's plain to see. Is it a week? Is it a fine? I mean, at best, it's a fine. I think if he gets off with a fine, he's done pretty well. But because they've clamped down since the Dangerfield and Sean Burgoyne one, you'd think it's a week, but it's a really tough one.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Those results will be out tomorrow afternoon when Michael Christian assesses them. Now to Geelong next, massive night for the Cats, which we'll get to in a moment. But they actually trailed this game in the third quarter. Gold Coast had all the momentum, and it was without Matt Rowell, who came off early in the game with a shoulder injury. This is really disturbing.
Yeah, it was one of the, I guess, most devastating stories injury-wise this year, because we're all thrilled to see him go about his work after 3 10s in the coaches' votes. No player's done that to start his career. And then the shoulders popped out. So dislocated shoulder is an interesting one. You can either go in and get it tightened up now, and that will be the season over for Matt Rowell, or you can keep playing and hope it doesn't continue to pop out and then have surgery at the end of the year. So
at his age,
I think it'll be the latter. I think they'll let him play. Like, he's a tough kid. It's not, as long as you're not going to do any further damage and you can go in at the end of the year. Players have been playing with loose shoulders for years, so I think they'll let him keep going this early in the year, and particularly when they're still in the finals race.
Although they're going to the hub next, so that they say that he's going to go to Sydney with them, and they'll see what happens from there when he does get scans. Now, as we mentioned, the Suns led this game in the third quarter. They didn't offer much after that. And two players you wanted to highlight, Jared Harbrow and Pierce Hanley.
Just have to be better. I mean, they've got so many young players that if you have senior players in your side, you cannot accept efforts like this. I mean, if this was a young player, we'd be critical of it. Not, players that have been there and played as much footy as Harbrow and Hanley. You can't accept one-handed efforts in defence. And
that's
look
the
at
one.
the score. They're leading, with not long to go in the third quarter, and that puts Geelong in front, and that deflates your whole group, particularly a younger group. And this one, once again, from Harbrow, just not strong enough in the contest. I actually thought it was a really mature performance from Gold Coast tonight. They're 20 points down at quarter time. They'd usually get blown away. They came back. They hit the lead in the third quarter, but those efforts, particularly from senior players, be really disappointing for Stewie Dew.
Ben King kicked 3 goals. 3 goals for Tom Hawkins. He had 4 goal assists himself, so a big night for Tom Hawkins. But we couldn't look past this as the goal of the night. Gary Ablett put the icing on the cake. Game 350. He's still got a bit to give in those legs.
Oh, look at it. I don't know how he's still doing that. That's probably gone 68 metres. Never in doubt, really. Didn't even look like missing. So he's done that for 19, 20 years, Gary Ablett, and he's continually doing it. And is there a more admired player in the game than Joel Selwood? I'm not sure that there is. And 73% win ratio for Joel Selwood since he's entered the competition. It is extraordinary, the impact that those two greats of the Geelong Footy Club have had.
300 games for Joel Selwood, and I think he's got plenty more to give. Now, to Friday night we go. Essendon. Gee, they won in a different style than they normally do. They hunted, they ran in packs, and they kicked 8 goals on the trot against Collingwood, and were well-deserved winners.
Yeah, the momentum in this game was really extraordinary. They hardly touched the footy in the first 10 minutes. Collingwood kicked the first 3, and you thought, oh, they're off tonight. They're in all sorts of trouble. So when we speak of mature performances, particularly after last week and the way that they went down, this was just that. And to be able to refocus your pressure mid-game is something that's not often easy to do, and the Bombers were able to do that, which I think is a sign of a side that is mature enough. They're at the right age bracket and can almost flick the switch like they did here in these goals they scored from turnover. And once again, we're seeing the ruck contest here. Yeah, the issue is for Collingwood. For Collingwood, the issue is the hit-outs. Grundy dominates the hit-outs far too often, 41-13 once again, but the stoppage goals are 7 goals to 2 the other way, Essendon's way. It's happened in the prelim final against the Giants last year, so they have to come up with a way where they get more benefit from Grundy's dominance. He's going to dominate every week, but opposition have worked them out, and they're scoring and capitalising on the hits that Grundy is getting that should be going to his team, but it's going to the oppo.
And the last man that laid that tackle, Andrew Phillips, he might keep Tom Bell-Chambers out of the side. He was managed from that win, Tom Bell-Chambers. Now, 2 controversial umpiring decisions in the second half. We'll start with this one, Jordan Ngoe, who's had an interesting day, which we'll explain shortly. This one, the umpire called Kane as a goal. It went to the score review, overturned, and the score review, the hub, suggested that they felt it was hitting the post.
It's a goal for me, and I think there's probably needs to be a rule that if it hits the goal umpire, look at his positioning, it should be an automatic goal. So I thought they got that one wrong, and this one they have admitted to getting wrong. They said the AFL confirms that the dangerous tackle free kick to Brown was unwarranted. In the umpire's view, he thought one arm was pinned and the tackle was excessive, which left the head in a vulnerable position, but clearly it wasn't, and that was a fair tackle. So whilst we are on umpires, Mitch, last week I went a bit hard on the umpires over their treatment of Toby Green. I want to apologise for that, and clearly the AFL umpires don't have an agenda against any one player, so I unreservedly apologise. And
Jordan Ngoe, as we mentioned, he's been charged today with a case of sexual assault. That relates back to an incident in 2015. The big part in the immediate future is this. He's going to face court in October, which you'll have to deal with later in the year, but he has to now face 2 COVID tests in the next couple of days to make sure he's in some doubt for this week's game, because he's been outside the AFL bubble. He's dealt with people as part of the legal system today. He's actually got to pass 2 fresh COVID tests, so he's in some doubt as to whether he plays Hawthorn next week.
And does it threaten to derail their season? Like, if the situation with Still side bottom wasn't enough, and we've seen the headlines that have eventuated from the comments made from President Eddie Maguire and people challenging him on that, then they've had to deal with this a couple of days later. So it's been a horrific week. Then you throw in the loss that they've had, and a pretty poor loss. It's really an interesting situation that the Collingwood Footy Club are in right now, on field and particularly off field.
And they go to Sydney for a week, then they go to Perth for at least 3 weeks. So it's going to be a watch and see what happens. And I can't wait to see what Eddie has to say next, because he's probably embarrassed as to what happened from last week and those comments that have been dug up in the last 24 hours. Now, earlier today, West Coast, their season was on the rocks during the third quarter. Sydney had fought back to within 2 points, staring down a 1-3 start of the season in West Coast. And these 2 players, Jake Waterman and Oscar Allen, delivered that passion that Adam Simpson had been craving.
Oh, it was just a welcome performance from Adam Simpson, because last week I said the Eagles had checked out, and they've checked back in today, because it was that intensity that I noticed, and maybe it just does take a couple of youngsters to come in and give you that hunger and that aggression. Look at this mark from Waterman there. I mean, that is a genuine contested mark. Now, they've played a lot in the wet conditions, not wet, but night conditions in Queensland, which is dewy. So it would have been a welcome sight to get some sunshine out there and be able to capitalise on Darling and Waterman and Oscar Allen, who kicked his 3. He's going to kick one here, which is a smart crumbing goal from the contest from Kennedy. So perhaps, they haven't had favourable conditions. That's never an excuse, but it was a welcome sight for Adam Simpson, because I thought if they lost that, it was pretty much season over for them.
And the Swans went in with no recognised ruckman. Hayden McLean, a rookie, had to do most of the work. Alir chopped out, and you can see Nick Natanui, really after half-time, the Eagles got the most of it out of it.
See, this is the complete opposite to Grundy and Collingwood. That's how you make the most of it. And I thought, whilst Nick Nat didn't have a lot of competition, the way that he was able to vary his hits, one would be to the left, then to the right, then he'd go long to space or behind his head. He kept the opposition guessing. So 11 hit-outs to advantage to none. You'll see the centre bounce clearances, the all-important centre bounce clearances, they dominated from there. So he's playing more game time.
Yep.
Nick Natanui, he looks more confident in his body, and if he can really get going to the back half, he's going to be a real weapon for them.
Luke Shuey, we mentioned, quarter time, he didn't see any more of the game. Left hamstring injury, he came off. Now, this is an interesting admission from Adam Simpson. Obviously, they'd lost 3 consecutive games. Said he just lifted the dial a bit at training during this week, and it may have contributed to Shuey's hammy.
No, we elevated our intensity at training, and maybe that's what happens. We had some sore boys towards the end of the game, so we were pushing a couple of buttons throughout the week to try and work out what was going on, and might have pushed them pretty hard on Wednesday training.
Now, it looks like 2 weeks for Shuey. He's going to miss next week, and then the Derby is the week later. A big blow for a team that's looking to rebound.
We're seeing carnage all over the place with soft tissue injuries. Cam Ellis-Yeoman was another one. There's been players that have gone down. Dan Hanbury was another one on Thursday night. So these are going to bob up throughout the year. I actually like it, because he didn't have much else to go with Adam Simpson. He'd sat them down. He clearly spoke to them calmly and spoke about what was going on. That didn't work. So you go to the selection acts. That didn't work. Well, the last option is to go full on at training. He did it. Yes, there's been a bit of collateral damage, but it wouldn't have mattered if they lost. So I thought that was good coaching.
Okay, interesting to see how long Shuey is out. It looks like 2 weeks at this stage. Now back to Thursday night. St Kilda sent Jaron Geary to Sam Doherty, put the clamps on the Carlton defence. They offered nothing out of the back half, and the St Kilda half back line of Ben Long and Nick Caulfield had a field day.
Oh, they've got some. I love the way St Kilda are going about it, and these two, which they don't get a lot of recognition, do they? But they got some good young players. I mean, Steele on Cripps was enormous as well. He was the best player on the ground. Marshall is so young, still in his 4th season as standalone ruckman now with Ryder out of the side. He was dominant. But this sort of stuff is just bringing people, well, it's not bringing people through the gates, Mitch, but it's making people watch on TV. And
they're getting prime time. They've got a Monday game in a few weeks.
So they should, because they're playing the most attractive footy with Brisbane in the competition. And this is the sort of stuff that would have Brett Ratton really pleased. This one here,
starts with the tap there.
Look how far behind he starts on that turnover. I mean, he's 10 metres behind his Carlton opponents. He chases down 3 of them and then bang, right on the break there at full time. And that's what Brett Radden, as I said, will be most pleased about.
And a big performance, Nick Caulfield, top 10 pick, so maligned throughout his career, and great to see him playing some good footy. Now, to the rest of the round we go. We start with potentially a battle for the wooden spoon, Adelaide and Fremantle.
Big story coming out about the Adelaide camp as well, so whether that affects their game today is an interesting timing behind that one. If they don't win this one, I just don't know where the next win is coming from. Matt Crouch back into the side. Huge game for Melbourne, I reckon, and Richmond, to be honest, to get their game back up and going. And then a cracker on Sunday night with the Giants playing well last week and Hawthorn just holding on against North Melbourne. So 3 really good games.
And Cullen Ward, unfortunately, out of that Giants side, has been replaced by Tommy Sheridan. Now, to one more thing, we know about Gary Ablett's 350th, Joel Selwood's 300th. They couldn't be chaired off because of the new social distancing laws. They brought a mate along for the ride.
Probably says a fair bit about how humble Joel Selwood and Gary Ablett are, that they share the limelight with a 50-game player when it's your 300th and your 350th, and you are 2 absolute greats in the competition. So, look, they love playing on that ground. It's impossible to win, and Geelong are sitting in amongst the pack that are looking okay.
And a nice photo for the mantelpiece for Jack Henry for years to come. Kane, thanks for that.
See you next week.
See you same time, same place here on The Round So Far.